Windham, and it's not Video Wednesday, and if you listen real close, I'll probably have music on top of this, but I'm playing Far Cry 3, and it's the part where you're in the boat, and I already had to leave to go get an RPG because I didn't have one, so I had to go hunt some deer and get another holster, and then go get an RPG, and now I'm in the bottom of the boat, and I even had to bump it down to easy, because I was doing a really good job. Ever since I've been playing, I started with easy, I've been working my way up to like medium. Most games I can beat on medium now, but I had to like bump it back down to easy, and I just can't get it. I'm in the boat, and I just can't get it. So I went, you know what? I'm gonna make a video, because apparently that's less stressful for me. But anyway, so something else that I am really into is I really like books. I'm a big reader. And so I figured I have over 100 books in my personal library. I've read even more, and some books are good and some books are bad. And so I'm going to tell you books that you should read and books that you should stay away from and save your money, because no. I just watched The Fellowship of the Ring. Again, if you start saying I hate you because you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, I will like punch you. No, I saw Fellowship of the Ring with a friend this last week, and it just reminded me how much I love the lore. And so if you're a person that likes Tolkien and you want something like it, or it's just a smidgen too historian-esque for you, but you love the lore, I've got 2 series to recommend to you. Because me, I like all kinds of books. I like all kinds of plots. Maybe you'll see a theme with them. We'll see. The first one I'm going to recommend to you is The Inheritance Cycle, starting with the book Eragon. I've got a lot of books. I just grabbed the first one in the cycle that I saw. This is not the first one, but they all basically look very similar, just in different colors. They all have a big dragon on the front, and they're all different colors. Eragon is technically in blue, and some people say Aragon because it rhymes with dragon. Anyway, by Christopher Paolini. He was like 16 when he wrote these. He's really cool. They're very meaty books, but you don't learn the history of the grandson of the grandson of the grandson of the grandson who built that bridge that they're crossing. Like, no, that you don't have that, but you do have a lot of lore. He created a complete language for his elves, just like Tolkien. There's a lot of Tolkien influence, obviously, and the story itself is original and really cool, and they get better and better and better. The 4th book isn't that good, and he could have done with 3, but you know, he's like me, when you get going you just can't stop. So anyway, Eragon Cycle, The Inheritance Cycle by Paolini, I would recommend. Also, this is written by Alison Goodman. It's Aeon and Aeona. If I'm pronouncing these wrong, I apologize, but these fantasy people make up weird words and I don't know them all the time. By Alison Goodman, not Goodwin, Goodman. And they're pretty cool. They got like this person on the front, and they look legit, and they got the title down here. But I do think that there is definitely a feminine spin on it. It is kind of Tolkien-esque as well. It's kind of written like they're in the Middle Ages, and they talk about the drink that they have, and they talk about he had a pain in his stump of a leg that he lost in the Great War of the Worlds. But anyway, there's 2 books. They're both pretty good. Not as good as the Eragon books, but it was a nice spin on things. It was a nice story, and it was cool because it's a very feminine perspective on things. It's a female author, and she writes a female character, and it's a cool feminine take on an action book, which is interesting, but it's not for everybody. So if you want something a little unusual that not that many people have read, I would recommend these. If you're more of a James Patterson reader, as in you like really fast plots and stuff that doesn't take a lot of time to think about because maybe you don't have a lot of time to read books and you're kind of going, I don't have time, Windham, to read books, then I recommend by Michael Grant, the Gone series. Again, they're very much like James Patterson. Very much so. It's like James Patterson and Stephen King had a baby. You've got kind of like this edgy story, but it's very fast-paced, and it's almost like you're reading a script of an action movie, which is really cool. There's 6 of them. They're kind of thick, but seriously, like, the words are pretty big. It goes by super fast, and they're good. It's a little risque if you're under the age of 12. So if you're under the age of 12, you're probably fine until like the 5th book, and then it kind of delves into stuff that's a little, ugh. They're also kind of gory if you're younger. Actually really gory. I think there's one part where someone literally coughs their lung up, like a chunk of their own lung. If you want something kind of written from an adult that actually has the perspective of a high schooler in a relatable way that isn't obsessed with who he has crushes on, etc., then David Lubar is an awesome author for you. He's written so many books. Sleeping Freshman Never Lies, one of my all-time favorites, but someone's borrowing it right now, so I brought one of his other books, Dunk. Dunk is really cool if you kind of have issues with a father figure. It's pretty relatable. The main character is funny. He's just a good writer. He just knows how to get in the head of someone that's younger and make being a loser seem okay. So David Lubar, highly recommend. If you want something that isn't your typical read, I really like the Dustland series by Moira Young. Again, she's a female author, so stuff tends to be a bit more feminine. There's a bit of romance in these. I don't mind romance as long as it's used as a subplot, and she does a pretty good job in the first one. The second two, it takes more center stage just because there's main characters. But, you know, you don't mind too much because it's after the first book. I think that the setting is really cool. What sells me on this book, and what is kind of hard if you're not a very fast reader for you, but if you're a fast reader like me, then you'll really like it. The main character isn't necessarily well educated, so she writes similarly to the way that she talks, without a lot of punctuation. She purposefully misspells words because that's how she would spell it. So it really puts you in the mind of the main character. It puts you in the setting. It makes everything more raw and more real, which I think is super cool. So the Dustland series, it's a bit adventurous, if you like adventure. If you don't mind a series that's kind of long, but is done by a really good author, and you really like things like Artemis Fowl, you definitely like Pendragon. People think Pendragon is about Arthur and the Round Table. It's not. His last name is just Pendragon. His first name is Bobby. And this is book number 7, and there's 10 of them. And honestly, this is kind of thick. Like after the 7th one, of course, they're gonna get meatier. The first few aren't that bad. But honestly, I remember everybody reading these in middle school because they had them at all the book fairs. They're awesome. They're bestsellers. DJ McHale's a really good author. Just the way that he writes is really good, and it's not too complicated. There's not too much detail. There's not too little detail. You can keep up with the story, and he has a fantastical world. And honestly, it's not just about the world either. It's about the characters. Like, he just does a good job of bringing it all together. Again, very much like Artemis Fowl in a lot of ways, which is really cool. Pendragon. If you want something that's not really young adult, which, let's face it, most of my demographic is like teenagers to like 20s, I'm gonna say. But if you want something a little bit more adult, and most likely if you're a woman, Sophie Kinsella's Shopaholic series make me laugh so much. Like, so much. Oh my goodness. Okay, you're not gonna find these in the kids section because she uses some language, but she is hilarious. She's British, so you can use as much language as she wants and not get in trouble for it. And honestly, they're a very light read. You can read through them really quickly, which is cool. I would recommend this like if you have a vacation and you want a book to read while you're at the beach, or a book to read on an airplane. This is the perfect type of book that you can read for this. A really good travel book, and a lot of times they come in these cute little travel sizes, which fits in your bag. If you want something more nostalgic, go for Louis Sachar. Some of you guys, maybe you didn't get into reading until you were older, and so maybe you saw everybody reading these and you never did. It's either Wayside School or There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom. I prefer There's a Boy in the Girl's Bathroom. I think the story is more touching, but honestly, if you go for anything Louis Sachar, you will have a good time. And it's very simple. Maybe some of you guys have kids, or maybe you're looking for a book to read with the kid you babysit, or maybe your niece or nephew. All of these are really good. They're good for either gender. And even if you're older, no one's gonna judge you and no one cares if you go to the bookstore and buy it for yourself. I bought this probably when I was older because I'd already read it, and look how well loved it is. I go back at least once a year and flip through it and read some of my favorite parts. I love it so much. It's one of my all-time favorites. So I definitely would recommend books. Now, if you want to save your money, here's a book that really wasn't that good. Splintered. I don't even know. A.G. Howard. A.G. Howard, you could have done better. Anyway, I really like Alice in Wonderland. I think that Alice in Wonderland is super cool. I'm definitely into anybody that wants to write a book about it and expand on that universe. However, what A.G. Howard does in this book is she turns it into a love triangle where the plot isn't even really that good, and it's kind of just a way for her to write a soft romance novel for young kids and just talk about how hot people are, like, for pages. There's a lot of puzzles, a lot of questions and mystery that never really gets solved. She thinks that she gives you the answer, but in reality she doesn't. The plot isn't even good enough for me to really remember what happens. I just know that I didn't really like it. I kept it because I'm addicted to owning books, but I'll probably end up getting rid of this one eventually because I'm really not that attached. But yeah, save yourself your $9 US or your $10 Canadian, and don't worry about getting this. Yeah, see, Melissa Marr wrote Splintered is a delicious, mad, wonderful read. I can't recommend it highly enough. But you know what? I think Melissa Marr recommends it because A.G. Howard writes very similarly to Melissa Marr. It's almost like Melissa Marr had she went by a different name and wrote exactly the same thing except Alice in Wonderland. She writes very similarly to Melissa Marr. Melissa Marr's like love stories except fairies, and she adds a lot of adjectives in her narrative. That's what it is. It's just kind of a soft romance novel with a lot of adjectives about a magic world. Sorry, like that's basically what it is. Anyway, that's kind of a delve onto my bookshelf, and there's a lot more where that came from. I might do like books of the month or something until I run out of all my books, and then you guys are gonna have to recommend books that I should read. Actually, you could recommend books that I should read. Actually, we're gonna be super real. So I think I'm gonna edit this and I'll put this up, and then I'll go back to playing Fear 3. Guys, I need your help. If you have any recommendations on what I should do so I don't like completely lose it with this dude. Like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to win the boat level. I'm gonna win the boat level. When I win the boat level, I'm gonna tweet about it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see it, and then you can retweet it because you're really happy that I'm not such a loser anymore. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's Windham. Let me know what books you think I should read. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts on the books that I recommended, if you enjoyed reading them, or if maybe you don't read and maybe you want to start reading. I recommend reading. I like it. It's a good pastime. It's nice. Anyway, see y'all next time.